Hey there, church family. Welcome to our first episode of Mission Talk, where we talk everything missions from across the street and around the world. And speaking of around the world, we are going to go there now to a missionary family of ours in Auckland, New Zealand. We have with us Molly and Hamish Taylor. Molly and Hamish, thank you for joining today.
Oh, our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So before I got on here, I Googled what the distance was from Ohio to where you guys are in New Zealand, and it is over 8,500 miles away, which I'm sure you're well aware of. So, Hamish, we've been talking all week and trying to find a good time to do this. And it's like, well, this is different because you are 16 hours ahead of us right now. So it's 3:30 in the afternoon for me, and it is 7:30 in the morning for you.
Yep.
Wow. So,
okay, we've already done 6 hours worth of work. So,
yeah. Deep Bible study, meditations. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm assuming you're on lunch break right now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The workday ends at 8:00 for you guys, probably. So, the whole point of starting a show like this called Mission Talk is people from our church and whomever is watching this from our community. We have a large following now online from people around the world. They might see or hear about missions that we support, missions that are connected to our church, but that's it. And due to the recent travel restrictions, it's not like you can just hop on a plane and come see us and talk to us. So due to the wonderful thing of technology, we can have this interview. So I want to start out with, just have questions, and feel free to take your time answering them. First, I want to talk definitely about your church, Church Northwest in Auckland, New Zealand, but we'll start out with just some family questions to get to know you guys. So if you could real quickly just tell us about your family.
Well, it's Molly and I, as you can see. We've been married for nearly 15 years, 15 years in May. And we have 3 boys. One just turned 13. His name is Liam. And Dylan is 10. And Riley is 8. So we have our hands full.
It's busy.
All right. And so your kids, they were all born there in New Zealand, correct?
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're all dual citizens. They have Kiwi passports and American passports.
Okay.
They're like spots.
Okay, so I remember we showed in church here, it's been several months ago, we showed in our church a video of you baptizing your son. I can't remember his name. Which one was it?
That was Liam.
That
was Liam. That was awesome to get to experience as a church, because as some people watching this might know, Molly, your parents are members here of our church. Yeah. And so you've definitely got connections here at WCC.
Multiple generations.
I know, yeah.
Yes. And so it's awesome. Molly, did you grow up here at WCC?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's our home away from home.
So the last time you were here, that was 2017, I think, summer of 2017.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
18, beginning 2018, I think. Yeah, we came over for 6 months. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was the first time I met you, I believe. And I remember there was, it was a Sunday night, and Hamish, you were asked to come and speak at a small group I was attending, and I was there and led worship one night. And so that was awesome getting to know you through that. So, so we know your kids. Hamish, you are a native of where you're at right now, right? You are New Zealand born and bred.
Raised here in New Zealand, yeah. So, yeah, I've been around the world a little bit, but yeah, no, I was born and raised here. I've kind of got an American accent I picked up from you guys. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So people kind of assume that, you were not from here. No, not from here.
So how did you and Molly meet? What's that story?
I came over to Bible college. The church I grew up in was started by an American pastor, and So when I went to him and said, I'd like to be a preacher, he suggested some colleges in the States. One that stuck was Cincinnati Bible College at the time. And then there was this really pretty girl from the very first week. But she wasn't interested. So I kind of, no, it was really awesome meeting her first week of college, early week, and
the rest is history.
Yeah, we just kind of stuck together from there.
So, Molly, what did your parents say when you're like, here's Hamish, he's from New Zealand?
So when I brought him home to meet my parents, my mom says to me, you are not to keep him from going back to New Zealand. And I joke around and I said, I think, at the time I took it as, if I marry him, I need to be willing to go back to New Zealand with him. And then later I was thinking, she may have been telling me not to date him because I would have to go back to New Zealand. But no, they love Hamish, so it's all good.
That's awesome. So I've got some questions. You can either answer individually or as a family. First question is just to kind of get to know you guys. All we know is you live in New Zealand, but where is your favorite place to take a family trip?
Oh man, it depends on whether it's a day trip or like a couple of days trip. So are we getting away for the weekend or?
What's our budget here?
Yeah.
Where are we going? We want to go. This sounds great.
Let's take both avenues. So whether it's either a day trip, or if the budget's unlimited, Hamish, because as we all know, missionaries' budgets are unlimited.
Oh yeah, yeah, we're rolling in it over here. Yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, let's see. As far as the boys have actually been talking about it, and they said, when are we going to go back to the States? And Dylan especially said, I want to go in winter. I want to see the snow because we just don't have snow here. So
well, at least not in Auckland where we live.
That's true. So like unlimited budget, we'd probably come back to the States. Yeah.
Though as far as New Zealand goes, we really enjoy going on bushwalks. There's bushwalks everywhere, which is amazing. It's so cool.
That's like a hike.
Yeah, hike. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yep. And so we just do like a couple hours sort of one. There's usually a waterfall or something at the end, and it's really pretty. There are treks that you can go on for 3, 4, 5 days. We haven't
attempted those yet.
That's probably a little bit beyond us, but we also like to go visit different parts of the country within driving distance.
Yeah.
We're actually next week we're heading down south to just to take a little camping trip with the kids. School holidays have just started, so we like to try and get away for that and just see. Well, the boys are into birds, which is a great country to be into birds. There's lots of birds around, so we see stuff like that and
visit our own backyard.
And just try and do whatever free to cheap things we can find to do.
Camping is great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't think we have any specific sort of like, we're going to go here every year sort of thing. We try and visit different things to kind of build our experience portfolio, as it were.
So Molly might have a better take on this, being born and raised in Ohio. And Hamish, you might have a take as far as when you first came to the States. What is some of the major cultural differences you noticed between our two countries?
Man, I mean, that's a really good question. So the biggest difference, I think, it hits you in the face as soon as you walk out of the airport, and it's that we drive on the left side of the road.
That's a good one to keep in mind.
Yeah. So if you come visit us, don't drive on the same side of the road. Steering wheels on the other side as well.
It'll be a short and spectacular trip.
So it's kind of it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you're on the road, you're fine. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest. You walk out and it's like, oh, okay.
We found when we started our previous church in Christchurch, and we had a couple of families with us, one family who's planting with this one with us as well. We found because New Zealand is, it's predominantly a Western country, we speak English, we use dollars. There's a lot that is very similar to the States. And so for them, I think they found that the culture shock didn't hit until a little bit further down the road. you go to a new country, you expect everything to be different. And then when it's very much the same, it kind of lulled them into a false sense of security. And then suddenly they got hit with this thing and this attitude and this way of kind of looking at the world and all that sort of stuff. And it just really threw them off. So, I mean, we're very laid back, sort of casual people. There's just a few subtle, I can't even think of examples right now, but just subtle ways of looking at things that are slightly different from the States that sort of come up when you're talking. You got an American saying something and a Kiwi saying something, you're like, oh yeah, that's interesting. It's a bit different,
I think there's a thing here called tall puppy. And so no one is allowed to rise above. And if you talk about yourself, and you're like, I did this, I did that, everybody will kind of cut you down because you got to be the same level as everybody else.
Humility is a very strong
It is.
value.
It's a really strong value. It's really interesting. I mean, we still have our, our superstars and, the sports figures and the singers and, the politicians, but they're very down to earth. And I mean, it's a really high value to be approachable.
Yeah. You don't want to praise yourself. That's for other people to do.
Yeah.
So if someone's interviewing you and you've just, won the World Cup in rugby, and they always talk about team effort. They always talk about how everything, sort of came together and it was sort of a good effort by the boys, and it's never like, oh yes, I did this and this was great and I'm this, and that sort of thing. Otherwise people kind of turn on you a little bit.
I had always heard that New Zealand, I know some people who's been there and they're like, their coffee is amazing. Is that true? Because I'm a coffee nut.
You would probably love it here. Hamish and I actually don't drink coffee.
What?
Yeah, I feel a little
but it
bit
is
of an
good,
outcast.
I'm told.
Yeah, it's big time in New Zealand now.
Yeah.
Like espresso coffee and doing it right and knowing all the different beans and it's a world beyond my understanding, but it's huge.
We've been trying to be good at church because you have your coffee connoisseurs who know what's good coffee. So when you put out instant coffee, they kind of go, I think I'll not.
But instant coffee is also remarkably cheaper than anything else, so we gotta go that way. But even McDonald's has espresso coffee everywhere. If you're going to sell coffee, it's got to be good coffee. I don't think that anybody sells like
bad
coffee anymore.
So outside of coffee, what kind of food do you guys like to get there? Is there restaurants there that we don't have? What's your family's favorite restaurant there? And what's their favorite restaurants back here in the States?
Oh, good question. Oh man.
It's one of the things that's different about New Zealand is that there is in the States, there's this whole collection of fairly inexpensive family restaurants, the sit down and eat type places, your Chili's and Applebee's and all of those sorts of things.
Bob Evans.
Yeah. It's like a whole, it's amazing actually. And I love all of them. We don't have that sort of thing as much in New Zealand. You've got your takeaways and you've got that sort of thing. You go and you pick up, you take it away. And then you've got sort of usually ethnic based restaurants, your Thai, your Indians and that sort of thing. Restaurants and they're really nice as well. But then you kind of got nicer restaurants. So you don't have hey, let's grab the kids, go sit down at a place that's not going to blow your budget sort of thing.
You save up for a couple of months.
Yeah. Well, at least we do, yeah. So, so we tend to like fish and chips, for example.
Fish and chips is probably our family favorite.
Yeah, bring it back home and or go to Burger King.
Do a family movie.
Like so that's kind of more of the scene, and for us, at least in New Zealand. And then there are some nicer restaurants, good food going around.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more expensive.
So every time you visit the States, does your kids have a favorite place here?
McDonald's?
They're young enough that it's all pretty much fast food stuff.
Yeah. We did a lot of Bob Evans the last time we were there, just because we were driving everywhere and there's usually a Bob Evans, and it's just there's just something hearty about it. You sit down like, this is good.
I'm surprised your kids, Wilmington's kind of known for Skyline chili.
They don't
especially
like it.
They don't like Skyline.
I know.
Yeah.
I love it, but the rest of the family.
Yeah, we got to be careful what we say.
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, we love Skyline.
Everyone
It's
is great. It's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
Well, Molly, you're from Ohio, so of course you like it.
Oh, I love it. I go into Skyline. I'm like, yes, this is my childhood and university time. You know, it's great.
We go in. It's chili, but it's not chili. It's something else. It's interesting.
We call it hot dog sauce. So
we just call that tomato sauce or ketchup, but that's fine.
It's funny that one of the last times I ate a Skyline, there was someone in there and he's like, chili on spaghetti or hot, that just don't make sense. And so I turned around to the booth next to him. I'm like, you're not from Ohio, are you? He goes, no.
He was like, no. Why are you here? This is literally all we do.
We have Skyline and we have Gold Star. It's like, that's what Ohio is known for.
That's right, yeah.
So, all right, another question. So now that we know a little more about what your family likes to eat, what do you guys like to do? What does an average weekend at the Taylor house look like?
Well, it depends on whether Hamish and I have got all our work for Sunday.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, we always do, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything's together.
Saturday morning, Hamish starts working on his message. That's probably how it goes, right?
I got to preach something, right? No, it's just I Google sermons.com and and it's.
Oh goodness.
No, we there are sometimes Saturdays I'll have a few bits and pieces we're kind of pulling together. One of the things we've started to try and do is I'll take one of the boys out for breakfast, just me and him. Go and get some dad-son time. We just rotate through, and the end of the month we'll
love it.
Once they've all had a turn, we'll do like a family breakfast, and
not just nice. Cereal, but like
get the bacon out and stuff, and it's kind of like a nice special breakfast, and that's fun. So we do that, and then the kids kind of potter around. They love playing Legos. There's always Legos going.
Always.
Everywhere. And then we just maybe we'll go down to the local park or something if we've got some time. Maybe down to the beach. Beach is about 15 minutes away, so it's
the
nice.
Beach is nice and close. It depends on winter or summer too.
Yeah, right now we're not going down to the beach.
It's kind of rainy.
It's sunny today, but it's windy and cold in the winter.
So what does a winter and summer look like to you? Because for us in Ohio, we're known for getting like all 4 seasons in one day. Molly, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
It can be snowing, and then it could be 70 degrees by the end of the day. We just don't know.
It's very extreme in Ohio, isn't it?
It is. We're much more mild here. It's I think they call it a temperate climate. And so our high here in Auckland, our high would be maybe 25 degrees Celsius,
maybe 30 on a hot
maybe
day.
30 on a hot day. I'm trying to think what
that's in the
90s to. 30 might be 85,
something like that. So high 80s something would be a really hot day. Sort of 70s 80s would be nice summer.
And then the winter it doesn't drop below 0 Celsius, which would be 32,
and that's only at night.
And that would be like, this is a cold day.
So you're usually sitting in your 40s, but the thing is it's also wet. So one of the things we enjoyed in Ohio is it's snowy or it's cold, but it's like you bundle up and it's fine. Whereas in New Zealand you put your sweatshirt on and
you're still cold. I feel cold and damp.
Just bites through everything. And it kind of has more of the miserable rainy cold rather than the magical snowy sort of thing.
So obviously the summer's an easier time for your family to get out. Does your family watch a lot of movies? If so, what's your family's favorite movie?
Man. Oh, good question. So I was thinking about this, Jacob, and I thought, if there's one movie that we come back to periodically, it's probably Storks. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yes.
We will quote it like during the week or something.
I don't know why that
I don't know, but it's such a good one.
It's tickled their fancy, and it's funny. I like it too.
Form of a automobile, the wolf pack.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we don't need to start actually quoting the movie.
They make these animated movies nowadays to where not only kids enjoy them, but adults get humor out of them too.
Yeah,
I love it.
I would watch it without the kids. A lot of
Maybe it's our favorite.
You two like to watch it without the kids. That way you don't feel so ashamed when you quote it. Is that it?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. So you watch it, you put the kids in front of it, and that way they've seen it. And then when you talk about it incessantly, they're kind of part of the conversation. So it's good. Now, Molly and I enjoy the Marvel movies.
Yeah, we've just
Once the
worked
kids
our
go to
way
bed,
through the Marvel movies.
We're big suckers for that.
Yeah, that's good.
So
wait, no. The government says I have to say Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
That's.
I was about to say, I was disappointed, Hamish, that you did not say anything, because that is my favorite movie all the time. And last time I seen you, I told you it's my dream to go to New Zealand and walk the path to Mordor, just like in the Lord of the Rings.
And they will charge you arm and a leg to do it.
But you can do it.
Actually, they're making a TV series. A Lord of the Rings.
I've seen that.
It's the biggest TV production of all time.
I know, me too.
It's over $1 billion budget, and it's being made in our backyard.
Yeah, it's just like 5 minutes down the road from us where
so
they're
there's
filming.
a studio they've got there, and so there's a couple of people in our church who are actually involved in the project. One guy trains horses to work with the actors. Another guy does rigging for stunts and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of part of our local culture is this huge, big production.
But it's really fenced off, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go have a look, and no, there's a big fence.
So they don't need like a preacher in the show. I mean, you didn't.
It's weird. Yeah, I asked.
You can come out and see.
No.
Those are my all-time favorite movies.
Or something, you know.
Oh.
And I've heard the joke before that Peter Jackson, the director of those movies, is the one who put New Zealand on the map. So I'm pretty sure New Zealand was around before Lord of the Rings, but he made New Zealand famous.
Yeah, we were just kind of this lowly, out of the way place, just kind of, and then Peter Jackson came along, savior of New Zealand. No, it's been big. In fact, I was in university when the movies were coming out, and it was just this real prideful moment, It's like,
that's my country.
That's my country. And they're doing these panoramic shots over these mountains. I'm like, I've been there. I know that place.
Well, you like the Marvel movies. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but the very first Avenger movie, part of it was filmed in Wilmington, Ohio.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
yes.
right there at
we heard about that.
Well, it's not DPNL.
DHL at one point.
DHL, thank you.
Yeah, that was back when it was just sitting empty. Yeah, and so anytime they were apparently on that big aircraft or whatever it was that transported them, that was Wilmington, Ohio. And I know several people who said they seen the actors like Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, all of them at the hotel in Wilmington.
That is so cool.
So it's like America has, it's like almost every movie feels like it's made in America anymore. And so I'm not as prideful about you and Lord of the Rings, it's like, okay, another movie. But that one, we can take some pride,
That's right.
You can kind of look through the windows of the plane. You can see the inside, that's the hangar. That's our hangar.
I like to transfer over and talk about Church Northwest. So my first question about Church Northwest is, when and how did you feel the calling that the Lord wanted you to move towards this?
Again,
that's a long story.
I know. How do we shorten that so that, to fit in your time frame here?
So many of the people at Wilmington will know this is our second church plant. And so we were in Christchurch, New Zealand, which is in the South Island, and we'd started a church down there, and that had gone well, but I think I had experienced some burnout in that situation. That's part of my spiritual growth journey. And so we had moved back up to Auckland, and I was just working at an early childhood center, and we were doing well, just healing and getting back into sort of a place of strength. And Molly was getting involved in more ministry and our church that I grew up in, which is kind of our home away from home church in New Zealand. And so, we were just kind of in that space for probably about 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, something like that.
And then one of the couples that we planted with in Christchurch, they came back up to Auckland, and they were ready to go. They want to start another church. And the northwest area of Auckland was always been on their radar. Huge growth area, houses just going in everywhere. It's just insane. And so they were kind of slowly chipping away at us, like, do you want to come join? Do you want to come be part, And we're like, I don't think we can yet. But I think it was 2017, I think it was.
Yeah, beginning of.
Yeah, we just felt like, okay, maybe we need to think about this a little more.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'll let Molly sort of explain her side, but for me, there was a moment we took a week to really fast and pray about what God is leading us to. I had done a message about not being afraid and stepping into something. And I was like, oh, wait, hang on a second. That applies to me. So, yeah, I hate it when I preach to myself. It's the worst. But yeah, so I'll pray about this. I'll, fast and really search it out. And I was taking a walk and listening to worship and just trying to seek God out. And there was it was a profoundly unprofound sort of moment, if I could say that, where I was just imagining being in church ministry again and leading another church and doing all of that. And there was just this absolute lack of fear, lack of trepidation, which defined my life for the previous 5 years, especially around ministry. And it was just like okay, like, yes, it makes sense. And the fact that happened in the context of my burnout meant to me, like, this was God saying, you're ready now. You're ready to get back into it. And yeah, so that was cool.
Yeah, I think for me, I kept saying, I can't be the same support that I was for the first church plant, because I actually want to be involved be on the ministry team and, be focusing on families. And so I kept saying to Hamish, until you're able to do this without, me being your primary support here, I don't know if I'm ready to get back into this. And yeah, I think it was about the same time, how God sometimes has you on a journey and you're both coming from separate directions, but you end up at the same place because that's just the way he's designed it. But yeah, it was just the fear wasn't there. And there's some like, what are we getting into?
That returned after we started.
But just the piece about this is the direction we need to go, and this is the next season of our life. So yeah.
And that has maintained. I joke about the fear coming back, but that sense of like, this was absolutely the right call.
Yeah.
This is what we were built to do. I think this is what God has designed us to do. And we needed to take a break. That time between was really important for my healing and for Molly's development and ministry. And it's just right. You know? And so it just felt, we're good. We're going to get back to it. We had the right people to plant with. I wouldn't have planted with anyone else.
I know, they're fantastic.
And they support us. They know our history. They know the issues that we went through. And so they've kind of wrapped themselves around us as well. And so we've been able to put stuff in place to kind of, stop that burnout happening again. And that's been working really, really well.
How many people's on staff at Church Northwest?
So at the moment there are 3 of us. So Hamish does I should let you talk what you do.
You got it.
Yeah, all right. So Hamish does kind of the visionary side of things, leadership, teaching kind of thing. Nate is our creative, so he does a lot of our worship ministry stuff, but as well as pastoral care. And I look after families. Although, we've got some, we're growing really rapidly. And so
she's been getting all of the extra.
I get all the extra kids. It's great. But we're spilling out of the seams. So I'm excited to see where God takes us, in the future.
That's a good problem.
It is a good problem. We have our kids leave the service partway through. We want them to experience the first part of the service, and when Molly takes the kids out, it's like this mass exodus. It's like at least a third, sometimes a half of the room leaves with her, and we're like, is she gonna be okay?
I do have parents come up to me, are you going to be okay? Have you got help today?
That's right.
Thank you so much for offering. I'm okay. I've got somebody to help me.
So Molly's part-time, but I think she has more responsibility than the rest of us combined.
Oh my goodness. It's been amazing. Jacob, you're going to love this. So when we first started out with church planting, I kind of said to God, okay, this is a new ministry. I trust you. And we're going to start out small. There's only 6 kids, my 3 and Nate and Whitney's 3. It'll be cruisy and we'll just grow really slowly. And within the first month, I think we were averaging about 15 to 20 kids. And I was like, oh God, this is not what I signed up for. But, he provides what you need. And I've got a really great volunteer team. Not supposed to use the word volunteer, am I?
Oh, yeah. Well,
got a great ministry team to help.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's it.
So how
Sorry,
has the local culture in that area accepted the church? I'm sure there's skeptical people. There's people excited. You hear the new church coming in the area. What was the culture? How did they receive that?
So one of the things that we've been really intentional about is building relationships with the current churches that are in there. And so Hamish and Nate and I all go to different cluster groups where just local ministers and pastors meet up, and we can just kind of talk things through, because the nature of church is a lot of times the people you initially draw are people who've been to church before. And you don't want to steal people from other congregations. So when you can say, why are you visiting us when your home church is this one? I actually know the people who run this one. Yeah. Being able to have a really good relationship and work together of, okay, how do we work together to make sure, people are taking their next step toward Jesus?
Yeah. One of the things I was really impressed when we were at Wilmington is the ministers collective.
Yeah.
They had a prayer thing on a Wednesday morning, and it was just the sense of camaraderie. Like, we're all on the same team. We'll do things differently. We have different flavors of church. We might even have different belief systems around certain things within the church. But we're all still for Jesus, and we all still want to see impact in the community. And so I really, really love that. And we've been very fortunate to have that same attitude in a lot of the churches in the area. Some don't. Some are out to do their own thing, and that's fine. But yeah, just that sense of, we're all on the same team. And when you do that, when we come in and say, hey, look, we want to start a church, what's this place like? And all of this sort of thing. They're like, yeah, come, please start another church. It's a huge growing area. But when you come in and you just start, and then you're like, we're just going to do our own thing and we're awesome. It's part of that tall poppy syndrome we were talking about before. People just kind of like, I don't really love the attitude. Why didn't you come and talk to us? Why didn't you come and mix with us? Are you too good to kind of rub shoulders with us? And it kind of gives a bit of a bad flavor. So we tried to make sure that we, worked with local churches. And that's been really positive.
We've been able to partner with some of the local churches, like with a food bank.
Yes, that's right.
Which has been huge, because again, it's a way for us to reach into the community and provide some tangible help.
Yeah.
But because all of the churches we're all small, and you don't have the same resources, by pooling our resources, we're able to have a really good impact on the community, which has been,
There's something special. And it sounds like even there too, when churches don't care about the petty differences, they know each of us love Jesus, and they want to have an impact on our community.
Absolutely.
And when those two things are set into a goal for a church, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's hard to explain, but it's awesome. And it sounds like that is what you're starting to see there at Church Northwest.
We have a yearly service. Nate's driving this one, where it's a collective service for all the churches in the area. And we go out to a local park, outdoor venue. It's in the summer. And we just get together. And so one church will do a bit of just a low-key preaching thing. And that usually leads the worship. That's our, sort of what we bring to the party. And then, but everyone's got a little something that they're doing, and then people come along together, and it's just so well received.
It is.
And people from the community seem to like that as well, even if they're not part of a church. They just kind of, oh, that's a cool idea. And it just changes the way that people outside the church look at the church. Jesus said, love each other. That's how people are going to know that you're my disciples. And certainly that's how they know we're problematic, is when we argue with each other and they're like, this is not a thing. But when we're able to come together, even with differences, especially in our culture, that really resonates with people. That people with differences, that people have disagreements, but they're still on the same team.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's huge for the community to see that your churches are outside of the walls.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're not going to a church building. It's a campus. It's a facility. You know, they're seeing the church in motion outside of the walls. That is awesome. So I got a loaded question.
Okay. All right. Fire it at us.
Last year, 2020, how has COVID-19 affected not just Church Northwest, but also your family?
I will say this, not nearly as badly as what we've heard from stuff that's going on around the world and in the States. We are blessed by having a small country that is completely surrounded by water. We shut down borders quickly. We had a leadership in the government who was strong, and for a time such as this, it was perfect, where she shut down. Everything shut down. And so as soon as we had wind that COVID was in the community, we went into lockdown. And so we made big measures early. And because of that, I think, and because of the nature of our country and how easy it is to kind of corral things, we were COVID free very, very quickly. So for the last, like we had a couple of lockdowns this year, short 1 week lockdowns. But other than that, we've had no COVID.
So we don't wear masks. I mean, you'll find one or two people when you're out that will have a mask on, but it's not common because there's just all of our COVID cases can be traced back overseas at the moment.
Yeah.
So
So we're in a position of strength, which is we're very, very fortunate in that. So saying that, we know that any of the problems that we had last year, any of the difficulties paled in comparison to places around the world. Our death rate was really, really low. We did have a few extended lockdowns, and that affected the economy and affected some people quite strongly. There was a lot of mental health issues that kind of popped up a little bit.
Unemployment.
Yeah, that sort of thing. It was bad, but not as bad as it could have been, even for what we had. And for us personally, it didn't affect us. I almost feel guilty saying that because I know there are a lot of people who were affected, but for us, the lockdowns slowed life down. It made us sort of, our families were together. We hated online schooling. That was kind of a common war cry in New Zealand. But apart from that, we actually thrived in that space. And it was one of those things that God is like, this is bad. The situation is bad, but God can use those bad things to create positivity and create nice moments and nice sort of stuff. And when we experienced that, we were blessed to experience the positive side of lockdown, where we just slowed down. You know, we were a family, and it was nice.
I think it also taught us a bit of flexibility. We had a lockdown, one that happened, they let us know at 9:30 on Saturday night that the next morning we were going into lockdown. So nobody goes anywhere, no gatherings of over 50, I think?
No, it was 10.
It was 10. And so, you've got church the next morning, and that it all happens at 6 a.m. So you scramble and you go, what do we do?
We just canned it that week.
Yeah, but we've done church at the park a couple of times, which is, I mean, again, it's amazing. Like you were saying, church is not a building, it's the people. And I mean, it's fun to do church at a park. It's different, Yeah.
It's a great learning experience for for the people of the church. Get them out of the comfort zone, get them to the park, and let's have church at the park.
A lot of them were in their comfort zone there, possibly maybe too much. No, I mean, it made it real casual, which has been a sort of a way that we want to go about church anyway. That casual, authentic sort of style. That's a very Kiwi thing. We're not so caught up on, traditions and the way things have always been done. So a lot of the stuff around COVID and the lockdowns and going online and doing online services, people actually kind of gravitated towards that. They thrived on that change.
Yeah.
And it's fresh and it's new and exciting. And we did see an entropy of engagement after a while doing online services.
But they were all back.
Yeah.
Once we were in person again.
So we kind of, but they embraced it.
Are you still doing it online, even though you're back in person, or?
No, there are some churches in New Zealand who are.
Okay.
And and that's a wonderful thing. We kind of decided for a community like ours, where community is such a big part of what people loved about Church Northwest. And there was a big drive in the first year or two to draw people together and to build a solid community, using that as a foundation to then go out into the community and to share Christ. But we found that we were losing that online. People would turn up and it was great. And we put on, Nate and he had some people helping him. They put on some great stuff online, and it was, it was pretty good, and people liked it, but you could tell there was just something missing. And so we were pretty eager to get back into in-person services as soon as we could. And then, of course, we're not really of the size where we can resource those two different things.
Having said that, though, I mean, it's a really good eye-opener, because online church has actually engaged people that hadn't been engaged before.
That's true.
And so it opens up a bunch of new possibilities. So it's good to think about, like, we do a podcast of this sermon on our website, on the church's website. But just, thinking as far as the future goes, what are the avenues of engaging people who want to be engaged online?
Yeah,
absolutely. So I've got two final questions here. If anyone watching this wanted to support the mission of Church Northwest, what are some ways they can do that?
Well, I think two big ways is prayer, just praying for us as a church leadership, that we would continue guiding. Things are going really well, and there's been a lot of growth lately, and that's wonderful. Managing that and sort of continuing to push forward the way God wants us to, and to continue seeking him out and making him the leader. So praying for us for that, praying for our people. And then also financial support is a big part of our sort of needs as well. We are sitting at nearly 80% of our support, which is great. But of course that leaves 20%. So if people are interested in supporting us monthly or one time, that would be fantastic. So Joellen Vance, Molly's mum, she's our forwarding agent. And so people can contact her, and checks can be made out to Wilmington Church of Christ and then sent to her. So we can send some information. I think you may have some information about that as well, so you can put that up.
We also put out a monthly newsletter, which goes on our Facebook page. So if you Google on Facebook, Hamish and Molly Taylor Church Planting NZ, that'll pop it up, and all of our newsletters are up there. And
we could put anyone on the email list.
Yeah, I think you can even sign up through the Facebook thing. I think we've had a few people sign up for the monthly newsletter. But
if it's kind of like, I don't know how that works, just email hamish@churchnorthwest.nz and say, I'd like your newsletter, and we'll put you on the list.
All right. And for those of you watching, if you're not sure who Joellen Vance is, there will be an email right down there. You can email the church, and we will get you in contact with who you need to get in contact with, and what we can do to help support. So my final question is, you said we can support you definitely in prayer. That's something everyone can do. And something I like about the teachings of Paul is that when Paul prays for people, he prays very specific prayers. They're not generic. They're very specific, mission-driven prayers. And so what is something specific, one or two things that people can be praying for, either both you as a family and for Church Northwest?
How can we be praying for the family, sweetie?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think health is always at the top of the list, as far as just that we can do what we need to do. When you get sick, it just throws everything out of whack. And the kids, we're in a we both work on a Sunday morning. So if one of the kids vomits, one of us has to stay home. But yeah, health is just an ongoing, again, we don't have any health needs at the moment, but just prayer that it continues to be good, I think is a huge thing.
Yep. For the church, as I was mentioning, we've experienced some growth. And so the church is entering a couple of different crossroads as far as big decisions, grown-up decisions for churches. And so we would really love prayer for wisdom. We have an eldership, which is fantastic. We didn't have that in our first church plant, but God has given us some people who are really invested in the church, and they're helping us process through some of these decisions, which is fantastic. So praise for that, but prayer that God will guide them, and in some ways that I can't guide them, they need to be guided by God, and so they are taking ownership of the direction of the church, and I'm part of that process, but I can't be the process. And so if you can pray that transition from that church plant where the church planters are doing stuff to a church where the eldership is leading and the people are doing. I think we're close to making that transition, and I think there's some really cool things happening, but there's also some potential danger of things spiraling out of control because we need to switch to that kind of leadership. And so, prayer on that would be absolutely fantastic.
Well, awesome. For those of you watching, I will put their social media pages down here, somewhere down here, up here, and keep up with them, follow them, support this church in any way you can. If not financially, definitely prayer, because that's something we all can do. Well, thank you, Hamish and Molly, for spending the hour with me.
Thanks for having us.
What an incredible way to kick off Mission Talk.
We love you guys.
I know. We just...
And I'll be sure eventually, I'll probably sometime soon have you back on here, and we can catch up more, find out what's been going on.
Anytime.
So thank you. So thank you for joining, and have a great Monday for you.
That's right.